My sister-in-law told the family I was infertile and useless. She lifted her glass and smiled at me like sugar could hide poison. Well, my sister-in-law said sweetly, not every woman is meant to be a mother. The table went quiet. I felt every eye land on me, heavy and sharp. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The roast chicken smelled suddenly sour. My husband's family sat around us, candles glowing, wine glasses clinking, waiting. Someone laughed, unsure. Someone else cleared their throat. I felt my face burn, then go cold. She didn't look away. She watched me, calm and pleased, like she had just said something kind. My heart pounded so loud, I thought they could hear it. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but my throat locked shut. She already knew. That was the worst part. She knew exactly what she was doing. She wanted me small, silent, and exposed. I realized then this wasn't a joke. It was a message. And it had been sent on purpose. Please subscribe for more revenge stories like this. Laughter rolled slowly around the table, nervous and thin. A cousin smiled at me with pity. My husband squeezed my hand under the table and leaned close. Ignore her, he whispered, like this was nothing. Like I could choose not to feel my life crack open in front of everyone. I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. My sister-in-law took a calm sip of wine, eyes bright. She looked proud. I stared at my plate, watching gravy slide toward the edge. I felt old in that moment. Not in years, but in where. I had spent decades learning how to keep peace, how to swallow hurt to protect family dinners and holidays. But this felt different. This wasn't clumsy or careless. This was planned. I felt it settle into my bones. When dessert came, no one asked me anything. They talked over me, around me, like I had already faded. My husband kept squeezing my hand, like pressure could fix betrayal. I smiled until my cheeks hurt. Inside, something began to harden. I didn't know it yet, but that night changed everything. By the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Messages from aunts, cousins, even people I barely spoke to. We heard about your condition. I'm so sorry. If you ever want to talk. My stomach dropped with every notification. Condition. That word echoed in my head. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my phone, hands shaking. I hadn't told them anything. I hadn't told anyone except my doctor and my husband. That meant only one thing. She had told them. Not just hinted. Told. I scrolled through the messages again, my chest tight. They weren't asking if it was true. They already believed it. I pictured her calling them, lowering her voice, acting worried. I imagined her saying she was just being honest, just preparing everyone. I felt sick. I felt foolish. I had smiled at her for years, trusted her with pieces of my life. Now those pieces were being passed around like gossip candy. I finally stood up and locked myself in the bathroom. I stared at my reflection and barely recognized the woman looking back. I confronted the truth alone in that bathroom. My sister-in-law had told the family I was infertile. She said it like it was fact, like it belonged to her. The lie spread fast because it fit the story she wanted. She had children. I didn't. She wore that difference like a crown. The jealousy had always been quiet before. Little comments about my age. Jokes about time running out. I had brushed them off. I told myself she was insecure. I told myself I was being sensitive. Standing there, I understood how wrong I'd been. This wasn't insecurity. This was cruelty. She wanted to control the story before I ever could. She wanted me weak, pitted, and explained away. I thought about the night she found my old test in the bathroom drawer. She had waved it like an accident. Oh, sorry, she'd said. I believed her. I felt stupid now. My hands curled into fists. The woman in the mirror looked tired, but her eyes were clear. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. And she had no idea what she'd started. I called her that afternoon, my heart hammering. She answered on the third ring, cheerful as always. I didn't waste time. Why did you tell everyone I'm infertile? I asked. There was a pause, just long enough to be careful. Then she sighed softly. I was just helping manage expectations, she said. Like she was doing me a favor. Like my body was family property. My hand shook so hard I had to sit down. You lied, I said. She laughed, light and sharp. It's not a lie if it's likely, she replied. That word burned. Likely. She told me I was too emotional, too sensitive. She said people would talk anyway. She said she was protecting the family from disappointment. I realized then she felt powerful. She enjoyed this. When the call ended, I sat in silence, my ears ringing. I wasn't crying yet. That came later. Right then, I felt something else grow inside me. Something steady. She thought she had finished me. She was wrong. Very wrong. That night, I cried in the shower so hard my knees gave out. The water was hot, loud, and unforgiving, but I needed it to drown out my thoughts. I pressed my forehead against the tile and let the tears come. In my hand, I held the old pregnancy test, the one from months ago. Negative.
Clean.
Final. I had thrown it away, or so I thought. She had found it first. She must have. I remembered her standing in the bathroom doorway that day, holding it like a strange object. Oh, she'd said lightly. You forgot this. I had felt embarrassed, exposed. Now I understood. She didn't forget that moment. She saved it. She used it. The idea made my chest ache. I wasn't crying because I wanted pity. I was crying because something private had been stolen and turned into a weapon. When the water ran cold, I stayed there anyway, shaking, until the sobs slowed and something firmer took their place. My husband apologized the next morning. He stood in the doorway, rubbing his neck, looking tired and guilty. I'm sorry about her, he said. She's insecure.
She didn't mean it like that.
I stared at him, towel wrapped tight around me. She told everyone I'm infertile, I said quietly. He sighed, like this was heavy but manageable. I'll talk to her, he promised. Please don't let this turn into a bigger thing. That's when I looked at him differently. He wanted peace, not truth. He wanted quiet, not justice. I nodded, because arguing felt useless. Okay, I said. But inside, something clicked into place. I wasn't going to beg for respect. I wasn't going to cry louder, so someone would finally defend me. I said the words before I fully understood them. If she's insecure, I added calmly, then she'll have plenty to be insecure about soon. He frowned, confused. I turned away, already planning, already done being small. The family group chat exploded by evening. Messages flew in fast, piling on top of each other. My sister-in-law typed long paragraphs about how misunderstood she was. She said she was worried about me. She said I was fragile and angry. She said I had twisted her kindness into something ugly. People responded with heart emojis and sad faces. Not one person asked me what really happened. I read every word in silence. Then I started taking screenshots. Every lie, every backhanded comment, every moment she painted herself as the victim and me as the problem. I noticed patterns I'd missed before. How often she mentioned my age. How she hinted that I was bitter. How she framed my pain as jealousy. My hands were steady as I saved each message. I didn't reply. Silence made her talk more. By the time the chat went quiet, I had a full folder of proof. My husband asked why I wasn't responding. I told him I was tired. That wasn't a lie. I was tired of being careful. Tired of hoping people would be fair. I was done hoping. I was preparing. A week later, she announced her pregnancy online. The post was polished, glowing, perfect. She stood in a white dress, hands cupped over her stomach, smiling like a magazine cover. Finally, the caption read, "A real heir for the family." My chest tightened when I saw it. Comments poured in.
Praise.
Hearts. Congratulations. I took a screenshot and saved it too. I noticed how fast the story shifted. She wasn't just a mother now. She was the example, the success, the contrast. At dinner that night, my husband avoided my eyes. Just ignore it, he said again. I nodded again. I always nodded. But inside, the anger sharpened. She wanted to define me by what I couldn't give. She wanted to erase everything else about me. My work,
My loyalty.
my years of showing up. I closed the app and set my phone down. I wasn't jealous of her pregnancy. I was furious at her cruelty. And I was patient enough to wait. Let her enjoy the applause. Let her feel untouchable. That feeling wouldn't last. 2 weeks later, I sat in my doctor's office, gripping the arms of the chair. The walls were pale blue. The air smelled clean and sharp. My doctor smiled when she walked in, holding my file. "Your surgery worked," she said gently. "You're fertile again." The words took a moment to sink in. Fertile. Again. Hope rushed through me, sudden and overwhelming. I laughed, then cried, then covered my mouth in shock. The doctor reached out and squeezed my hand. "I know it's been a long road," she said. I nodded, unable to speak. When I walked out into the parking lot, the sun felt brighter than it had in months. I sat in my car and breathed. I didn't call my husband. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anyone. This wasn't fear. It was choice. I had learned something important. Some truths are fragile. Some truths are powerful. This one was both. And I wasn't ready to give it to people who had already proven they would twist it. I started the engine, calm and focused. Silence, I knew now, could be a weapon. I kept my doctor's news to myself. Not because I was scared, but because I was careful. I watched how my sister-in-law moved through rooms, how she told her story louder each time. She liked being the center. She liked control. Silence made her uncomfortable. At family dinners, she touched her stomach often, even when no one asked. She spoke about cravings and symptoms like a script she had practiced. I smiled and listened. My husband watched me closely, waiting for me to break or snap. I didn't. Inside, my secret felt steady, warm, alive. Revenge didn't need shouting. It needed timing. I wrote dates in a small notebook. Who said what? Who heard what? I noticed how often she corrected people when they spoke to me kindly. "Don't get her hopes up," she'd say with a laugh. "You know her situation." Each time, the room shifted. Each time, I said nothing. Silence let people reveal themselves. I wasn't hiding. I was waiting. And waiting gave me power I had never held before. During the holiday visit, she struck again. We were gathered around the living room, lights glowing, plates balanced on knees. Someone asked about my work, and before I could answer, she smiled and said, "Well, we can't all have it all. Some women get careers. Some get children." Her eyes flicked to me. My jaw tightened. The room went quiet, thick with discomfort. I felt my husband tense beside me. I took a slow breath. "That's true," I said evenly. "Life gives different seasons." She blinked, clearly expecting tears, not calm. Later, in the kitchen, I caught my reflection in the microwave door. I looked older, yes, but stronger too. I wasn't fragile glass anymore. I was stone. That night, I lay awake replaying every moment she'd used my silence against me. I didn't feel weak. I felt ready. She thought she had already won. That was the mistake people like her always made. They confused patience with surrender. A few days later, I borrowed my husband's laptop when mine froze mid-email. That's when I found the folder. It wasn't hidden well. Just a name I didn't recognize. Inside were emails between my sister-in-law and a close friend. I read them slowly, my hands steady.
They laughed about me.
My age. My body. "She'll die childless," one message said. Another joked about how easy it was to control the story. My chest hurt, but I didn't stop. I printed every email, every cruel word. I stacked the pages neatly and slid them into a folder. Evidence felt heavier than paper. It felt solid. I didn't tell my husband. Not yet. I wanted to understand the full shape of the lie before anyone tried to soften it. That night, she sent me a message asking if I was okay after the holiday. I replied with one word. Fine. The lie between us grew thicker. She didn't know she'd already lost control. She had written her own ending. The next lie was worse. I heard it from a cousin first, her voice soft and unsure. "I heard you lost a baby," she said gently. I'm so sorry. My heart stopped.
What?
I asked. She hesitated. Your sister-in-law said there was a miscarriage. My hands went numb. There had been no baby. No pregnancy. No loss. Just another story she invented to explain me away. Grief she could wear like proof. I ended the call and sat in silence for a long time. This wasn't gossip anymore. This was cruelty with intent. She wanted sympathy built on my pain, even if she had to invent it. I added that lie to my list.
Dates. Names.
Words. That night, I didn't cry. I slept deeply, like my body understood something my heart was still catching up to. She was spiraling. Lies pile faster when truth is close. I could feel it. The moment was coming. And it would be public. 2 days later, her husband called me. His voice was low, careful. I need to talk to you, he said. Privately. We met for coffee, sitting far apart like strangers. He looked tired, worn thin. She's out of control, he admitted. You don't know half of it. I didn't interrupt. I let him speak. He told me about mood swings, secret credit cards, stories that didn't line up. Then he said something that made my breath catch. Some of the pregnancy stuff doesn't add up. I looked at him steadily. What do you mean? He swallowed. Dates change. Doctor names change. She won't let me come to appointments. The room felt very still. I didn't accuse. I didn't push. I just listened. When we stood to leave, he looked at me with quiet regret. I'm sorry, he said, for what she's done to you. I nodded. I believed him. Allies appear when lies grow too loud. I walked home knowing the ground beneath her perfect image was already cracking. A week later, her husband called again. This time, his voice shook. I found something, he said. We met in his car, parked far from the house. He handed me his phone. On the screen were ultrasound photos. I looked closely. Something felt wrong. The dates didn't match what she'd told the family. The names of the clinics were different in each image. One photo had a faint watermark in the corner, barely cropped out. My stomach turned. These don't come from the same place, I said quietly. He nodded. I checked, he whispered. One image came from an online forum. The air felt heavy. He pressed his hands to his face. I think she's been faking part of it. Maybe all of it. I felt a cold calm settle over me. This wasn't chaos anymore. This was structure. Proof. I handed the phone back gently. I'm sorry, I said. He looked at me, eyes red. So am I. I walked away knowing the truth was no longer mine alone. It was growing teeth. I didn't expose her right away. That was the hardest part. Every lie she told felt louder now. Every smile felt fake. But timing mattered. She loved attention. She loved an audience. I decided the truth would meet her where she performed best. At home, I started organizing everything. Screenshots, emails, messages, dates. I labeled folders carefully. I backed them up twice. I wrote notes in plain language so no one could twist the meaning later. I practiced saying nothing. My husband noticed my calm and mistook it for healing. I'm glad this is blowing over, he said one night. I just nodded. It wasn't blowing over. It was gathering weight. I imagined her face when the story finally cracked. Not with joy, with resolve. Revenge wasn't about screaming. It was about precision. I slept well during those days. Better than I had in months. I knew something she didn't. And that knowledge steadied me like a hand at my back, guiding every step. The proof folder grew thicker. I added call logs, timeline notes, even recordings where she contradicted herself without knowing. I didn't edit anything. I let her words stand as they were. Lies fall apart when they're placed side by side. I read through the folder one final time and closed it carefully. This wasn't about hurting her. That thought surprised me. It was about stopping her. About taking back the story she'd stolen from my body and my life. I thought about all the quiet moments I'd swallowed my pain to keep peace. That peace had never protected me. It had protected her. I wasn't angry all the time anymore. I was focused.
Clean.
Ready. When my husband asked why I seemed distant, I told him the truth. "I'm done being confused," I said. He didn't understand, but he didn't argue. The trap was set. All it needed now was the right stage. And she was already building it herself, one shiny lie at a time. The invitation arrived 3 days later. A family gender reveal dinner. Hosted by her. Fancy restaurant. Private room. Decorations promised. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I smiled. Of course, she wanted a crowd. Of course, she wanted witnesses. I replied yes before I could second-guess myself. My husband looked surprised. "Are you sure?" he asked. "She's been cruel to you." I met his eyes. "I'm sure." That night, I chose my outfit carefully. Nothing loud. Nothing dramatic. Calm colors. Steady lines. I wanted the truth to be the loudest thing in the room. I checked the proof folder again and slipped it into my bag. My heart beat evenly. This wasn't fear. This was readiness. She thought this night belonged to her. She thought she would shine. She had no idea it would be remembered for something else entirely. As I turned off the light, one thought echoed in my mind. Lies love the dark. Truth loves an audience.
Tomorrow, she would get both.
She arrived like a queen. Glittering dress. Hand on her stomach. Smile practiced and wide. Cameras flashed as family crowded around her. I watched from my seat, quiet and still. She laughed loudly, soaking in every second. When she saw me, her smile tightened for just a moment. Then she hugged me stiffly. "I'm so glad you came," she said. I nodded. I wouldn't miss it. She passed around printed ultrasound photos, waiting for gasps. People leaned in, smiling, clapping. I noticed the corner of the image. The watermark was still there, faint but clear. My pulse stayed calm. The room buzzed with excitement. Glasses clinked. Someone asked me if I was okay. I smiled and said yes. Inside, everything was lined up and ready. This was the last quiet moment before the truth arrived. She stood to speak, glowing with confidence. She had no idea the story was about to turn. And when it did, there would be no way to stop it. She handed the ultrasound photo to me last. Her fingers brushed mine, and I felt a small tremble. "Isn't it amazing?" she said, watching my face closely. I looked down at the image, pretending to study it. The baby's shape looked familiar in a strange way, like something I had seen before, but not in real life. My eyes moved to the corner. There it was. A faint watermark, half-cropped, careless. My heart didn't race. It slowed. I passed the photo back and smiled. "It's very clear," I said. Around us, family cheered. Someone wiped tears. Someone asked about names. She glowed, soaking it all in. I sat quietly, hands folded, letting the moment stretch. This wasn't the end. It was the breath before the fall. I reached into my bag and touched the edge of the folder, just to feel it there.
Solid. Real.
She thought she was safe because no one questioned her. She forgot something important. Lies don't like details. And I loved details. Applause filled the room as she clinked her glass for attention. "Thank you all for celebrating with us," she said, voice bright. "This baby means everything." People nodded, smiling wide. I watched faces glow with happiness built on a lie. My husband leaned toward me. "Are you okay?" he whispered. I nodded once. "I am." The server refilled glasses. The room hummed with warmth and noise. No one noticed how tightly she held her glass. No one noticed how often she touched her stomach now, like reminding herself to remember the role. I felt strangely calm. The kind of calm that comes when a storm has already decided where it will land. She sat down, eyes flicking to me again. Something in her smile faltered. Maybe she sensed it. Maybe truth has a sound only liars can hear. I waited. Timing mattered. I wanted everyone settled, comfortable, open. When lies fall, they fall hardest on soft ground. I took a slow breath and stood. I raised my glass, just like she had weeks ago at that first dinner. The room quieted. Faces turned toward me. I felt their curiosity, their surprise. I just want to say something, I began, voice steady. To family, I paused, letting the word land. And to truth, no matter how long it takes to arrive. A few people nodded politely. Someone smiled. My sister-in-law froze. Her eyes locked onto mine, sharp and afraid. The room felt tight, like everyone was holding the same breath. I lowered my glass but didn't sit. Families should protect each other, I continued. Not build stories that hurt. A murmur moved through the room. She shifted in her chair. I could see panic flicker across her face now. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I reached for my bag. The silence stretched. If your heart is pounding right now, hit subscribe for more revenge stories, because this is the moment where everything changes. She laughed suddenly, too loud. Okay, she said, forcing cheer. This is getting weird. I looked at her calmly. It is, I agreed. That's why I think we should clear the air. My hand rested on the folder. The room was completely silent now. Even the servers paused. Her husband stared at her, confused. What's going on? Someone asked. She stood halfway, knocking her chair back. She's trying to ruin my night, she snapped. I met her eyes. You already ruined enough, I said softly. Her face went pale. I turned toward the TV mounted on the wall. May I? I asked the room. No one answered. I picked up the remote anyway. My heart beat slow and deep. This wasn't anger. This was finish. The screen flickered to life. She took a step toward me. Don't, she whispered. I pressed the button. The truth doesn't whisper. It arrives. The ultrasound image filled the screen.
Clear. Bright.
Familiar. I pointed calmly. This photo, I said, comes from an online stock image site. Gasps exploded around the room. Funny thing, I continued, tapping the corner. You forgot to crop the watermark. Her scream cut through the air. You're lying, she shrieked. I turned and handed the folder to her husband. Then please explain the messages, I said. He opened it, hands shaking. His face drained as he read. You think they'll notice I'm only 3 months but look 6? He read aloud. Silence crashed down hard. Her mother started crying. Someone stood up, swearing. My sister-in-law collapsed into her chair, shaking. I felt no joy, only relief. The story she built on my body burned to the ground in front of everyone. And this was only the beginning. She lunged toward the screen, screaming that I was sick, jealous, cruel. You planned this, she yelled, voice cracking. I didn't move. Her husband kept reading, his hands shaking harder with every page. You said you bought the photos online, he whispered, like his mind refused to accept it. She turned on him then, accusing him of betrayal, of not supporting her. The family erupted. Questions flew. Voices rose. Someone demanded answers. Someone else demanded silence. I stood still, letting the truth speak louder than I ever could. She doctored timelines, I said calmly. She lied about doctors. She lied about me. Her father covered his face with his hands. Her mother sobbed openly. She pointed at me, wild-eyed. You wanted this, she screamed. I shook my head. No, I said. I wanted it to stop. The room felt like it was breaking apart. And in the center of it all, her perfect image cracked wide open, piece by piece. Her husband's voice cut through the chaos. Enough, he said sharply. He stood, holding the folder like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I asked you for the truth, he said to her. Over and over. She stared at him, breathing hard. I just wanted to feel special, she cried. Everyone expects so much. He shook his head slowly. You made everyone else pay for that, he said. The room fell silent again, heavy and stunned. Someone whispered my name. I didn't answer. I watched her sink into her chair, shoulders shaking, makeup smeared. This wasn't victory. It was exposure. The kind you can't recover from with excuses. Her mother stood up and slapped the table. You lied to us, she sobbed. You used us. Her father wouldn't look at her. I felt something release inside my chest, like a tight knot finally loosening. The lies were no longer floating. They were pinned down, undeniable, spoken out loud for everyone to hear. Anger replaced shock. Voices sharpened. Accusations flew. How could you say those things about her? Someone demanded, pointing at me. Another asked how long the lies had gone on. My sister-in-law covered her ears, rocking slightly, muttering that none of this was fair. Her mother turned on her fully then. You made a mockery of this family, she cried. You shamed us. The words hit hard, harder than anything I could have said. Her husband stepped back, creating space like he no longer knew her. I stayed where I was, grounded. I didn't need to add more. The truth had momentum now. People asked me questions, careful, regretful. I answered simply. She told people I was infertile, I said. She told people I lost a baby that never existed. Gasps followed. Heads shook. I felt seen in a way I hadn't before. Not pitted. Understood. The family fury wasn't mine to carry. It belonged to the person who started all of this.
She broke completely then.
Sliding out of her chair, she collapsed to the floor, sobbing. I just wanted to matter, she screamed. I wanted to be special. No one moved to help her at first. The room was too full of truth. Finally, her sister knelt beside her, not comforting, just steadying her. This isn't how you do that, she said quietly. Her husband stared down at her, tears running freely now.
I don't know who you are, he said.
That sentence landed harder than any accusation. I felt a strange mix of sadness and distance. I hadn't wanted to destroy her. I had wanted to stop her from destroying me. There was a difference. The room stayed silent as she cried. Then someone looked at me and asked softly, Is there anything else? I nodded once. My hand moved to my stomach without thinking. I felt calm.
Clear.
Ready. This was the last truth. And it was mine to tell. I have something to say too, I said gently. Heads turned toward me. She looked up from the floor, eyes red and swollen. I rested my hand on my stomach, steady and sure. My doctor confirmed last month that I'm fertile, I said. A ripple of shock moved through the room. And I'm pregnant. Silence. Then joy burst out, messy and loud. Her mother gasped. Someone cried. Someone hugged me, without asking. My sister-in-law's face went blank. The baby arrives in 6 months, I added calmly. Her scream cut through the celebration as she scrambled to her feet and ran out of the room. No one followed. The joy stayed.
Real. Warm. Honest.
I stood there, surrounded by truth at last. Not as a symbol, not as a contrast, just as myself. The family gathered around me, voices full of relief and happiness. And for the first time in a long while, the story wasn't being told about me. I was telling it. The room stayed loud after she ran out, but it wasn't chaos anymore. It was relief. People talked over each other, laughing, crying, hugging me. My husband stood beside me, stunned. I didn't know, he kept saying, like the truth was still catching up to him. Her husband sat alone at the table, staring at the empty chair where she'd been. No one blamed me. That surprised me most. Instead, people apologized. Quietly. Honestly.
We should have asked, my aunt said.
We should have protected you. I nodded, accepting it without bitterness. The damage had already been done, but this felt like a repair starting. By the end of the night, people had blocked her online. Messages spread fast, correcting lies she'd planted for months. The story flipped, and it flipped hard. I walked out of that restaurant with my hand on my stomach and my head high. The air felt lighter. Justice hadn't screamed. It had landed. The days that followed were strange and calm. Her lies unraveled faster than I expected. Friends stopped calling her. Families stopped defending her. People compared notes and realized how often she'd twisted stories. The same mouths that once whispered about me now spoke her name with disappointment. I didn't add fuel. I didn't need to. Truth travels on its own once it's free. I focused on myself. Doctor visits.
Rest.
Quiet joy. My husband apologized again, this time without excuses. I should have stopped her sooner, he said. I believed he meant it. He stood up for me publicly now, correcting anyone who repeated old lies. That mattered. One evening, her husband called. "I'm filing for separation," he said flatly. "I can't live in fiction anymore." I felt sadness for him, but no guilt. Choices have weight. She had made hers again and again. And now, she was carrying them alone. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a message from her. Just one line. "You humiliated me." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I replied, simple and clean.
No.
"You did." I didn't block her right away. I wanted her to sit with that truth. She didn't reply. I imagined her reading it over and over, looking for softness that wasn't there. That chapter was closed. Family gatherings shifted after that. People checked on me gently, without pity. I noticed how different that felt. Respect instead of sympathy. One afternoon, her mother invited me to dinner. Just me and my husband. When we arrived, she pulled out a chair at the head of the table. "You sit here," she said firmly. I felt something settle in my chest. I hadn't asked for this position. I had earned it by surviving. We talked about normal things.
Food.
Weather. The baby. No one mentioned her name. Silence can be a boundary too. Her husband finalized the separation quickly.
Papers were signed.
Accounts split. He told the family himself. "I can't trust her anymore," he said. No one argued. The image she'd built collapsed fully then. There was no mystery left to protect. I focused on preparing for my child, nesting slowly, carefully. Friends threw me a small gathering. No cameras. No speeches. Just warmth. Laughter filled my home instead of tension. I slept better than I had in years. Sometimes, I thought about her, alone with the wreckage of her own making. I didn't feel triumph. I felt distance. That was better. My body changed, my life shifted, and I welcomed it without fear. One night, my husband took my hand and said, "Thank you for not letting them break you." I squeezed back.
I didn't, I said.
I stopped letting them. The difference mattered. The future felt solid now. Real.
Mine.
As my due date drew closer, the family gathered again. This time it was my invitation. My house. My rules. Laughter filled every corner. No sharp jokes. No quiet cruelty. Just people who knew better now. Her parents came early, bringing food and apologies that felt sincere. "We failed you," her mother said softly. I shook my head. "You listened when it mattered," I replied. That was enough. We ate together, shared stories, planned for the baby. When we took a family photo at the end of the night, one chair stayed empty. No one mentioned it. It didn't need explanation. That absence spoke clearly on its own. I looked around the room and felt something deep and steady settle inside me. This wasn't revenge fueled by anger. This was justice shaped by truth. I hadn't destroyed her. She had undone herself. All I had done was stop carrying her lies. And that was freedom. My baby shower didn't look like the ones I used to see online. There were no matching outfits or loud games. There were soft colors, homemade food, and people who showed up because they cared, not because they wanted to be seen. My sister-in-law was not invited.
No one asked why.
That silence felt respectful. I sat on the couch, one hand on my belly, listening to laughter fill the room. Friends I hadn't seen in years hugged me tight. "You look peaceful," one of them said. I realized she was right. There was no tension in my chest. No fear of the next comment. No need to brace myself. Gifts were passed around slowly. Tiny socks. Blankets. Notes written by hand. Each one felt real. When the day ended and the last guest left, I stood alone in the quiet room and breathed deeply. This joy wasn't loud. It didn't need proof. It simply existed. And it was mine. My daughter arrived just before dawn on a quiet Tuesday. Her cry cut through the room, sharp and strong, and something inside me broke open in the best way. When they placed her on my chest, warm and real, I felt years of hurt finally loosen their grip. This wasn't revenge. This was life continuing, despite everything. My husband cried openly, holding my hand like he never wanted to let go. Family came later, gentle and respectful. No cameras, no speeches, just awe. When I held her that night, rocking slowly in the dim light, I thought about all the words once used to shrink me. Infertile, useless, broken. None of them mattered now. She breathed softly against my skin, proof that lies don't get the final say. Justice didn't arrive with shouting or applause. It arrived with a heartbeat, with warmth, with a future that felt clean and honest. I slept that night with my daughter beside me and no fear left inside. Months later, a message appeared on my phone. It was from her. "Can I see the baby?" I stared at the words longer than I expected. They didn't make me angry. They made me tired. I thought about everything she had taken, twisted, and thrown away.
Trust.
Family peace. My privacy. I typed slowly. "Not yet," I wrote. Truth takes time to earn. I didn't explain. I didn't soften it. I didn't need to. She never replied. Life moved on quietly after that. My days filled with feeding schedules, walks, small joys. I stopped checking for updates about her. Her absence faded into something distant and dull. The space she once filled with tension was now filled with laughter and quiet routines. That was the real consequence. Not punishment. Irrelevance. I had learned something important. Closure doesn't come from winning. It comes from no longer needing to look back. We took a family photo on my daughter's first holiday. 3 generations sat close together, smiling, tired, happy. One chair was empty. It stayed empty. No one tried to fill it. When I looked at the picture later, I noticed how natural it looked. Not perfect, just honest. I held my daughter and felt grounded in a way I never had before. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. Not my worth. Not my strength. I had lived through betrayal and come out clearer, not harder. That mattered. Family dinners felt warm now. Conversations stayed kind. If someone crossed a line, it was named and stopped. No more silence used as a weapon. I had changed the pattern, not by shouting, but by refusing to carry lies that weren't mine. When I tucked my daughter into her crib that night, I whispered a promise. She would grow up knowing truth, not performance. Love, not comparison. That was the legacy I chose. She once tried to define me by what she said I couldn't give. She thought my value had limits she could point to and mock. But lies don't bear fruit. Truth does. Truth grew quietly while she performed. Truth waited while she talked. And when it arrived, it didn't need decoration. It stood on its own. I didn't destroy her perfect image. I stepped out of it and let it collapse on its own. The truth became the only legacy she couldn't fake. And I finally understood this. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it breathes softly in the dark, wrapped in a blanket, safe in your arms. If this story stayed with you, like the video, subscribe for more powerful revenge stories, and tell me in the comments what part hit you the hardest.